There we go.
You want me to do it?
I think we're good. All right. So good morning and welcome to the July 23rd, 2026 meeting of the Seattle Planning Commission. We like to begin our meetings with a land acknowledgement. As we begin our meeting, we respectfully acknowledge that our meeting today is taking place on occupied Coast Salish land. We pay respect to Coast Salish elders past and present and extend that respect to their descendants and to all Indigenous people. To acknowledge this land is to recognize the history of physical and cultural genocide and settler colonialism, which continues to displace Indigenous people today. It is to also recognize these lands, waters, and their significance for the resilient and wise peoples who continue to thrive in this region despite the consequences of displacement and broken treaties. Those who hold settler privilege in this city must work towards supporting the Coast Salish people and all Indigenous people using the various forms of wealth and privilege they reap due to it. My name is Yo Alvarez, I use she, they pronouns, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Seattle Planning Commission along with Nick Whipple. We have a few announcements to members of the public and visitors. First of all and foremost, welcome. We're happy to make all commission meetings open to the public, but please note that the Planning Commission does not hold public hearings. The commission is an advisory body. We provide recommendations to elected leaders that in turn make the actual decisions. We encourage individuals and organizations to provide their comments appropriately to elected officials. This meeting is a hybrid meeting with some individuals participating remotely, like myself, while others are participating in person at the boards and commissions room at Seattle City Hall. More power to them. It is very early on a Thursday. In addition to land acknowledgement, we also like to begin our meetings with an acknowledgement of color brave space norms. I'd like to invite a commissioner to choose and briefly speak to one of our color brave space norms that they feel have a particular relevance to today's agenda. And Vanessa, I'll ask if there's a commissioner in the room with you, if you could just invite them to speak up. Not to put the in-person people on blast. Online folks also.
Yeah, it's been a while. So, okay, look for learning and commit to learning in public. I'm excited to hear about neighborhoods today and to learn more about what's going on. And also because, personally, we've been talking a lot about housing and stuff that's well out of my expertise, and it's always a good reminder to be comfortable learning in public when I'm uncomfortable outside of wetlands. So, that's my own personal spin.
That's great. Thanks, Iris. I am uncomfortable in wetlands, so you've got that leg up on me. If there's no amendments or modifications, I'll suggest that we all agree to these norms. Great. So we'll do a quick round of introductions. I'll start and I'm going to reverse what I usually do, and I'm going to send it around the online room first, and then if the folks in person can send it around. But my name is Yo Alvarez. I use she, they pronouns. I live in White Center Highland Park. And for my day job, I'm an architect and urban planner at Element Architects. I'm going to pass it to Diana.
Good morning, everyone. Diana Quintanar. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Capitol Hill. And for my day job, I'm a multimodal transportation planner. And I'll pass it over to Amir.
Good morning, everyone. This is Amir Isai. I use he, him pronouns. My day job, I am a civil engineer working on sustainable infrastructure. With that, I'll pass it on to Andrew.
Hi, Andy Dannenberg, he, him, live in Northeast Seattle, and I teach in public health and urban planning at the University of Washington. Patrick.
My name is Patrick Taylor, he, him. I live in North Beacon Hill. In my day job, I work on housing at an architecture firm. I'm going to pass it off to Dylan.
Everybody, Dylan Glosecki, you see him pronouns. I live in the Central District. I am an architect working in residential and urban infrastructure. I'll pass it on to Margaret.
Hi, my name is Margaret Zellis. I use she, her pronouns. I live in the Fremont area and I am about a week away from taking the bar. And then I will be going into land use law in the area. Is there anybody else online?
Haley.
Hey everyone, I'm Haley Karcher. I use she, her pronouns. I work for Seattle Public Schools as an enrollment analyst, and I live in Columbia City. And it seems like I'll pass it to the folks in person.
Hello, Michaela Daffern, she, her pronouns. I live in Capitol Hill and I work in affordable housing policy and planning. I'll pass it to Rose.
Hi, I'm Rosa Shelley Woodson, pronouns they, them. I live in the North Gateway Springs area, and I'm a wetland biologist and permitting specialist for my day job with Jacobs, so big infrastructure projects.
Hey everyone, I'm TJ Stutman. My pronouns are he, him. I live in the Holler Lake neighborhood, and my day job, I'm an analyst in the King County Executive's Budget Office.
I think we can go to staff. Robin?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Robin McGonigal. I live on Vashon Island. That's why I'm not there. And I use she, they pronouns, and I'm staff to the commission.
Next morning, everyone. Olivia Baker. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm also staff to the commission.
I'll wrap us up. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa Murdoch. I use she, her pronouns, and I also am staff to the commission. And I will kick it back to Zio.
Great. So we have one item on the agenda today. We're going to receive a briefing from staff from the Office of Planning and Community Development on neighborhood snapshots and neighborhood level indicator tools that they've developed. We need to approve our July 9th, 2026 minutes. So I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
And a second.
Second, but
Second.
Michaela? Oh, sorry.
Are there any changes or amendments to the minutes from our last full commission meeting? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstentions? Great. So our upcoming commission meetings, our next Housing and Neighborhoods Committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, August 6th from 7:30 to 9 a.m. and that's online via the Teams platform. And our next full commission meeting is scheduled for Thursday, August 13th from 3 to 5:30 p.m. I'm going to pass it to Vanessa for announcements.
Thanks, Zio. As noted before, this is a hybrid meeting with some commissioners joining us here in the boards and commissions room at City Hall and others online. During the meeting, there will be opportunities for questions and comments for commissioners. And we're going to be using the chat function of MS Teams for commissioners to join the discussion queue, and that includes commissioners here in the room. I will do my best to assist Zio in monitoring the queue, and please don't put any substantive comments in the chat as members of the public who are calling in will not have access to the chat. If they join via Teams, they will, but if they call in, they won't. And speaking of public comment, we have a variety of ways that we welcome public comment, joining us here in person, emailing me in advance of the meeting, or if members of the public are joining online, you can see on the screen instructions for how to do that, raising your hand in Teams, and then you'll be acknowledged by the chair. I do not see any members of the public joining us, so we don't have any public comment this morning, but just wanted to run that through in case somebody happened to hop in. And we are a little ahead of schedule, which is amazing. And I am not seeing our presenters with us quite yet. So please hold tight. They are scheduled to start at 8 o'clock and my clock shows 7:57. So when they join, I'll let you know, Zio, and then we can move into that agenda item.
Great. Yeah, maybe took us a little too quickly through the beginning, but
No, Maurice.
Efficiency is good.
Efficiency is good, as Michaela says. Absolutely.
May I ask a question? Thanks for letting me speak. I missed the last meeting, so I missed who our new leadership slate is. Can you repeat that for my benefit?
Absolutely. So CEO and Nick are going to be co-chairs.
Okay.
And Rebecca and Dylan G are going to be co-chairs of the Housing and Neighborhoods Committee. And we don't currently have co-chairs for the Land Use and Transportation Committee. So we are going to, John and I are going to tag team it and then also invite commissioners who are part of that committee to step up once a month. So
Okay.
that's where we are. And we will be, speaking of, for those of you who have missed meetings, we will no longer be posting to our website presenters' PowerPoints because the city and other agencies are working to make sure that everything on our websites is ADA compliant. And we don't want to get into the business of trying to remediate somebody else's PowerPoint presentation. We will be sending it to commissioners along with draft. When we send out the draft agenda and the draft minutes, we'll also send that their presentations out. And then for any members of the public who want to request a copy of the presentation, we're happy to provide it with the caveat that it may not be ADA compliant because that we, Just seeing.
There they are.
They are, yay. Two of our presenters are here, Zio, so you can go ahead and move to that agenda item.
Awesome. So we have a briefing from Diana Canzaneri, Philip Carnell, and Megan Rose from the Office of Planning and Community Development this morning. They're joining us to brief us on the neighborhood snapshots and neighborhood level indicator tools. We have an hour for this agenda topic, and we ask that our presenters leave about 20 to 25 minutes for commissioner questions and comment. Just so that everybody is aware, I have to drop at 8:30, but Vanessa and commission staff have valiantly offered to help man the conversation. So apologies that I'm missing that, but welcome to our presenters, and I'm excited for this conversation.
Hello, all. Thank you so much for having us. Give me a moment while I get my screen up on view. And let's see, do folks see the presentation?
We do not.
We don't, we see you.
Okay, hold on. Let me try that again. Okay. Let me try one more thing. Sorry about that.
Not to worry.
Oh. I've got two computers here, and sometimes things get persnickety. Okay, let's try it this way.
Diana, are you doing it via share your screen? There you go.
I think it should be up now.
It looks like it's loading. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Phew, good. It wanted me to press a different button for some unknown reason. I do not understand. All right.
Diana, we
Yeah.
have a couple of new commissioners, so if you wouldn't mind before jumping in, just introducing yourself as well as Philip and Megan, that would be great.
Definitely. So I am Diana Canzaneri. I use she, her pronouns. I work in the long range planning division of the Office of Planning and Community Development. I am the city demographer and also serve as a strategic advisor. And I will turn to my colleagues to introduce themselves. Let's have Megan go next.
Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to meet you all. My name is Megan Rose, she, her. I'm a planning and equity data intern with OPCD. I've been on the data team since January. I'm currently a grad student at University of Washington pursuing a master's degree in statistics. I graduated from University of Utah for my undergrad with a bachelor's in economics. But yeah, I'm super interested in public policy work, especially as it relates to like statistical analysis and equity. So yeah, I'm excited to be here today. Thanks for having us.
All right, and Philip.
Hi everyone, Philip Cornell, they, them, Planning and Equity Data Analyst in OPCD. I apologize for not being on camera yet. I will be in a couple minutes here. And I have worked in OPCD for the last 3.5, close to 4 years at this point on a range of different things, including our comprehensive plan housing appendix, the racial and social equity index, displacement risk indicators, outside citywide, zoning implementation, rent monitoring, tend to be kind of a person that when people have data questions, they come to this team, and kind of any one of us might be prepared to answer it. And hopefully that's what we're also here today and have prepared for you. And congratulations to any of the new commissioners who are joining us for the first time.
All right, great. So we will go ahead and jump into our presentation. So we are first going to be talking a little bit about what our data team does. Then we'll give some quick background on OPCD's, we'll outline the kinds of resources that our data team provides with a special focus on the tools that we have to help folks gain insight into neighborhood level trends and demographic characteristics. Then at the end of the presentation, we'll briefly describe the work that we're gearing up to do to monitor outcomes envisioned in the comp plan. And of course, we'll have time for Q&A and discussion. Our data team includes the city demographer, that's me, our planning and equity data analyst, Philip, and our grad student, Megan. Also, our GIS analyst, Jennifer Pettyjohn. And we're all a subset of the staff in OPCD's long range planning division. The data team helps support all parts of OPCD, as well as providing interdepartmental consultation and collaboration on demographic data, as well as data related to socioeconomics, housing, land use, and equity. And I just want to make a note that even though Jennifer isn't here presenting, I want to acknowledge that several of the data tools that we'll be showing you are ones that Jennifer had a hand in developing. So briefly, what does the OPCD data team do? We curate and publish planning and demographic data to support community stakeholders and inform OPCD's work, as well as broader city efforts. So this includes doing things like mapping conditions and analyzing trends at both neighborhood and citywide levels, and measuring progress towards big picture goals, especially urban planning related policy goals. We also provide consultation to colleagues, as Philip was noting, and help facilitate interdepartmental data collaboration. And we contribute our expertise to a number of interjurisdictional advisory work groups. So in this next, which is our main segment of our presentation, we're going to give you a tour, kind of a whirlwind tour of several of the data resources that we provide. We're focusing today on resources that are designed to provide insights into the demographic makeup of Seattle's neighborhoods to enable the city to serve residents in these neighborhoods more effectively and equitably. Most of the sources we're describing are available on OPCD's public-facing resources, I should say, that we're describing are available on OPCD's public-facing population and demographics website, which this slide links to. And as I understand, you'll have the PowerPoint, so you have these links after our presentation. We'll be diving most deeply into the neighborhood snapshots, which our team published just a few weeks ago. And we have Megan, our fabulous grad student intern, to let you know about the information that you can find on the snapshots. And we're now, hopefully this is going to work, transition to having Megan share her screen. If that doesn't work, I can share my screen. um, so there we go.
Megan, you're on mute.
But your screen share was working.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Diana. Yeah, so for this next section, I'll be covering the neighborhood snapshots. These are the profiles that OPCD produces for each of Seattle's 53 community reporting areas, or CRAs for short, and separately for each of the 7 council districts shown here on the 2 maps. Just a quick note on the CRAs, they're made up of a combination of census tracts. They're not official geographies, but we use them as a way to summarize census data. So with that being said, we'll just walk through what's in a snapshot, how they're formatted, where to find them, and then just look at a few interesting examples of the data. So we developed the snapshots in partnership with the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs and the Department of Neighborhoods. This update is in response to a 2026 Statement of Legislative Intent from City Council, asking OPCD to update the neighborhood snapshots and expand them to cover all the neighborhoods in the city, along with council district level profiles. And as part of the update, we added several new topics that weren't in earlier versions. And this includes population size and growth, disability status, household characteristics, transportation characteristics, and housing cost burdens. So the snapshots are meant to provide commonly requested information about the population and demographic characteristics in each area, and to really enable users to do a variety of things with them. So the first main purpose is to explore the data, learn key facts about any neighborhood. And the second is to compare trends, identify patterns and disparities, whether that's comparing the population within a neighborhood over time, or maybe comparing characteristics across different neighborhoods. And the third intended purpose is to support communities and take action. So using the information presented to help engage communities, shape decisions, and ultimately build better outcomes. So each snapshot comes in 3 different formats depending on different ways that a person might best absorb the information. there's a graphic-rich PDF. This has maps, charts, and icons. And this is the version that people will likely use the most. There are only a few pages, so they can really easily be printed out and passed around in community meetings and such. There's also an ADA accessible version, which is built to meet web accessibility standards. So it works much better with screen readers than the graphic-rich version. And we also call it expanded because it includes some additional comparison data, comparing each neighborhood not only to Seattle as a whole, like the graphic-rich snapshots do, but also to King County, Washington State, and the United States. And finally, there's an interactive map viewer for people who want to explore the underlying data directly rather than just looking at a single document. But yeah, having all three versions really gives people more options on how they want to take in the data in the snapshots. So all of these are posted on OPCD's population and demographics webpage, the neighborhood snapshots for each community reporting area, and the council district snapshots for each of the 7 districts. And we have the links here on the screen, but we can also put them in the chat as well. So now I'll just go through a quick example of what a snapshot looks like. This is the front page. In this example, we're looking at the Ballard community reporting area. It shows a map of the neighborhood boundary, its location within the city, and a chart of population size and growth over time. We also show the annual average growth rate for 2 periods, 2020 to 2025 and 2010 to 2020, next to the same figures for Seattle as a whole, so you can see how each neighborhood compares to the city. This next page covers characteristics like race and ethnicity and languages spoken at home, shown side by side with those same citywide figures. And then the pie chart gives a fuller breakdown of race and ethnicity in the neighborhood. And the language section draws both on American Community Survey data and Seattle Public Schools home language data, since the ACS is a little bit more limited in the language data that it provides at a neighborhood level. And we also see some information on age distributions and the level of education within the population of that neighborhood. And then the 6th page finishes up the community characteristics section. It covers living arrangements, like how many residents live in a household versus a group setting like a dorm or a nursing facility, along with average household size and a breakdown of household types. On the right, it covers income and poverty, health insurance coverage and disability status, and finally housing and transportation. The statistics on housing include the share of renter households and owner households spending 30% of their more of their income on housing. And then regarding transportation, the snapshots cover vehicle access and the most common way residents get to work. And then this last page provides supplemental information, including contact info for OPCD and the departments we collaborated with in producing the snapshots. We also have a short explanation of our data sources and how the snapshots are put together. We also have a technical document on the snapshots webpage that goes into a lot more detail on the sources and methodology and definitions of the data that you can reference as well. So now we'll take a quick look at an example of the accessible version of the snapshot. Again, in this example, we're still looking at the Ballard Community Reporting Area. All of the data from the graphic-rich PDF is included in the accessible version, but here it's presented in tables, each with a corresponding written narrative for better use with screen readers. And as you can see, we have a linked bookmark that one can click on to quickly navigate to the narrative section if they so choose. So here we've included the map of the neighborhood with a note that directs you to the narrative section of the document again, shown on the right, for a written description of what the map shows and which census tracts it contains. So I put an example of the table and the narrative next to each other. Here we're looking at the age distribution and level of education data presented in table format on the left. And on the right-hand side, we have that same data in narrative form for those who might prefer to read a more plain language description of it. So now that we've gone over the contents of the snapshot, I thought I'd just point out a few interesting trends and data points that come up. So this chart shows how much housing tenure varies across the city. Pioneer Square, First Hill, and Cascade/Eastlake all have renter rates near 90% or even higher. Whereas Arbor Heights is over at the other end at 11%. So it's almost entirely made up of homeowners. And Seattle as a whole is somewhere in the middle. And this is about an 80-point spread between the highest and lowest neighborhoods. So I thought this was a good example of why it's important to look each neighborhood individually, since you can't see these numbers alone just by looking at the city average. And here we're comparing population change over time for two neighborhoods against the citywide trend. The Pioneer Square/International District community reporting area has grown sharply, almost doubling since 2010. And as you can see, Arbor Heights had a similar starting population in 2010, but in 2025, we see that it's only increased to a population of 6,300. In fact, the average annual growth rate actually decreased by 0.1% from 2020 to 2025. Let's look at languages. In South Beacon/New Holly, 59% of residents speak a language other than English at home, compared with 24% citywide. Pioneer Square/International District and Beacon Hill are also well above the proportion in the city as a whole at 44% each. And Arbor Heights has the smallest proportion of residents speaking a language other than English at 9%.
Sorry to sorry to interrupt, Megan. There's a question in a chat from a commissioner asking if someone on the team could define housing tenure.
Yeah, so Diana, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's it's like comparing the owner households versus those who rent.
That's correct.
I hope that clears it up.
I apologize, Megan. I'm still not quite following. So what exactly is being measured here? The proportion of ownership versus renters?
Yeah, so like for example, in Pioneer Square, 94% of the residents rent rather than own.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think I have one small correction to the chart. I think it probably should be labeled something like the renter household proportion.
That makes much more sense to me than housing tenure.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so just to wrap up this presentation on the neighborhood snapshots and make it just a little more interactive, we put together a little Jeopardy game. So each column is a category. We have population, housing and transportation, and demographics with points based on level of difficulty. So you guys can pick a number, we'll read the clue together, and then either feel free to just shout out the answer or type it in the chat if you have any guesses. So which one do we want to start off with? And I apologize, I actually can't see the chat, so.
Are you supposed to say it or put it in the chat?
You can say it.
Yeah.
Housing and transportation for 10.
Okay. In this neighborhood, children make up only about 2% of residents. Is it U District, Cascade/Eastlake, or Belltown?
I'm gonna go with U District.
Yeah, you just.
C.
What is?
I'm thinking Belltown.
You've just stated like Liberty.
This is 10 points?
It's subjective, for sure.
Belltown.
Okay, final answer, Belltown, I'm hearing, or maybe U District. All right. What is
Wow.
Cascade?
Oh.
Yeah, so this includes South Lake Union. And then in Seattle as a whole, children are 14% of the population, so 2% is quite a big difference. What's next?
Anybody get it right? Whoever got it right goes next, I think.
Did any of us get it right? Let's do demographics for 20.
This neighborhood has the highest percentage of population living with roommates. Fremont, First Hill, or Licton Springs?
First Hill.
First Hill?
I was gonna say, based on that last one, I feel like it's Licton Springs.
Well, you would be correct.
Wow.
Good job.
Nice.
Yep, 25.4% of Licton Springs residents live with roommates compared with 15.4% in Seattle as a whole.
All right, Patrick, that means you get to pick the next one.
All right, I'm gonna chicken out and go population for 10.
4 in 10 residents of this neighborhood live in group settings.
Megan, while they're asking that, when you were talking about roommates, that does not include family settings. Is that correct?
Correct. I think the official name is like non-family, 2 or more people. I think when you like talk about family, it can get a little confusing, but yeah, it basically just means roommates.
What is the U
Megan,
District?
can
Definitely
Name
like
of the
door.
list?
This is
Megan's
group
coming.
housing.
Wait, sorry, Philip, did you say something?
I was going to ask if you could describe group settings for everybody.
Yeah, so group settings, this would be like dorm. I feel like I'm giving it away, but it's like dorms or like nursing facilities or group shelters, that sort of thing.
U District.
Yes, good job.
Should be for 10. Is that for 10?
So then you get to go next.
Okay, let's do housing and transportation for 30.
Ooh.
An average of 3.18 people per household. This neighborhood has the highest average household size in the city.
I was gonna say South Beacon, but I don't know, someone from West Seattle. This is Rox Hill, Westwood. Because I lived in Othello and there's lots of big households down there.
So big now.
There's lots of big households, but it doesn't feel like there's more than there are in South Beacon and New Holly. But maybe my perspective is wrong. This is
The
great.
answer,
Can I ask?
oh, the answer, oh,
Oh, no, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, yeah, I was gonna ask how a household only considers therefore this family setting. It would not consider people living with roommates, or would roommates be considered part of a household size?
I believe they would be considered part of a household size.
Interesting. Okay.
Hmm.
And if we feel like we're running low on time, we don't have to do all of these, but
These are fun.
all right, what's next?
Sorry, Megan, can you explain why that is, that trend in the previous answer?
Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. That is a good question. I know the average in Seattle as a whole is 2. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on why that might be.
When I lived in the neighborhood, there was just a lot of extended families living together. And that was my perception. Where like my neighbor would be like, oh, I inherited the house from my family and this is like my kids live here and my cousin, or like we moved to Seattle together. So it's me and my brother and our sisters and our wives and kids and stuff. It was just lots of people with families together.
My guess was immigration,
Well-
so I was just curious if that was something that was correlated. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, and a lot of those families were immigrant families for sure.
Right.
And relatively as
Thank you.
well to looking at or housing supply.
Yeah.
There are more they're going to be more multi-bedroom units in certain places than others. There's a lot of market rate housing that has been built in other parts of the city that is studios and 1 bedrooms in particular over the last decade. And that plays into this dynamic of how things kind of look spatially across the city.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Philip. Okay, do we want to maybe do just a couple more?
Yep.
Housing and transportation for 20.
In this neighborhood, 66% of renter households spend at least 30% or more of their income on housing, compared with 42% citywide.
South Beacon.
That's a good guess. Any other guesses?
I'd support that one.
Yeah.
Yep, 3rd, 4th.
Yeah.
The
I
answer
was
is
gonna-
Highland
I
Park.
think it's Highland Park.
She is, I know.
Wow.
I'm learning so much.
I know this because I looked at our neighborhood demographics. Yeah. When you
That's good. That's what it's for. But yeah, there's all sorts of interesting facts in these snapshots. All right, let's do one more. What's it going to be? Choose wisely.
Population for 30.
Choice. These 2 neighborhoods had an average annual growth rate of 0% from 2020 to 2025. So there's 2 answers here.
I'm guessing Blue Ridge.
I'll say Magnolia and Blue Ridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Magnolia.
All right. Seeing some consensus here. This one is a tricky one. It's High Point and Sewer Park.
Oh.
Do not know cities.
But yeah, both of these neighborhoods have pretty much stayed flat in population over the past 5 years, in contrast to some of that double-digit growth that we've seen in other neighborhoods. And then just for reference, Seattle's average annual growth rate in the city as a whole from 2020 to 2025 was 2.1%. All right, well, that's pretty much all I have. I think at this point, I'll pass it back
So actually,
to...
hey, Megan,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
in the interest of time to avoid technological snafus, maybe you can just keep
Oh, yeah.
sharing your screen.
That's fair. Okay.
Oh, I see that Rose has a question.
Yeah, so I've been playing around on the web tool just to see the functionality. Is there an easier way to compare the neighborhoods without having to like click and open a bunch of screens? Like, am I missing something?
Well, good question, actually.
Okay.
There's a tool, there's another tool. We've got like lots of variations on tools that I think is going to be particularly useful for you. It's the one that I'm going to show right after this tool that's on the screen now. So, you can let me know if that tool that I'm going to show you called Exploring the Patterns of People does the trick for you. And if not, we can get back to you in a follow-up. All right. So we want to let you know also about this tool that we call the Neighborhood Profile Builder. So like the snapshots, it serves up American Community Survey data from the Census Bureau on a whole array of topics. It allows you to look at neighborhoods, the city as a whole, and King County. And what you're seeing here is in the default view is information about basic age demographics for the city as a whole. So here is data for the Cascade East Lake community reporting area. Remember that statistic about 2% of the population being kids? Well, that's here. But the key thing that I want to point out with regards to this tool is that with this, you're not limited to looking at the predefined community reporting areas for neighborhoods. So you can opt to look at combinations of census tracts instead, like any custom combination of census tracts. So here we basically took East Lake out of the community reporting area. And we're looking just at the South Lake Union portion of it. And as you can see, the percentage of the population who are kids goes down to just 1%. Next slide, please. And here we're just listing all of the topics that are available in the Neighborhood Profile Builder. You can get to these by, there's a scroll bar down at the bottom of the tool. Next slide, please. Okay, also, we want to highlight this one, and this is what I think Rose is going to find particularly useful. So, this Exploring the Patterns of People app allows you to look at a whole variety of different American Community Survey data estimates. It really allows you to see how patterns vary across census tracts, not just actually within Seattle, but in the Puget Sound as a whole. Next slide, please. And here's a zoomed in look at some data that you can get from this tool. There's a whole bunch of stuff. It's like you can be a kid in a candy store on this. This view shows information that you can discover about commuting overlaid with data on households who lack a vehicle at home. Okay, next slide. Let's see, I'm looking at time, so I'm going to go through this really, really fast. I have some observations from some presentations that I did back shortly after the latest decennial census came out. Next slide, please. So I'll just quickly breeze through these. Overall, Seattle's population grew by 21% between 2010 and 2020. The fastest growing racial groups were Asians, Latinx people, and persons identifying as more than one race. Next slide, please. Here we're looking at age-based segments. And one takeaway is that adults of color have been a big driver of population and growth, but the number of children of color increased only slightly faster than the overall population. And this is a trend that's really in great contrast to like the rest of King County, where the number of kids of color just, shot up. Okay, next slide. Couple of maps here. We're comparing rates for the population of color on the left and the population who are white on the right. And as you can see, most neighborhoods show higher growth rates for the population of color than for white people, but it's the white population that has grown faster in the central area and southeast Seattle. Next slide. Okay, and here we're comparing the population growth rates for children of color on the left to growth rates for white children on the right. And as you can see, the pattern is even more stark with the added observation that the number of children of color decreased in a large swath of neighborhoods in Central and South Seattle. Okay, next slide. We also want to let you know about our neighborhood change webpage. And this includes a bunch of information about how communities of color, including populations of specific race and ethnic groups, have changed over time. So what we're seeing here is two maps showing the share of the change in the share of the population within community reporting areas who are Black. So the map on the left shows changes from 1990 to 2010. The map on the right shows change from 2010 to 2024. The blue shades represent increases, while orange shows decreases proportionally. And then where you see those down pointing triangles, those are community reporting areas that actually had, you know, sheer numerical declines in the number of people who are Black. So we've got a whole series of these, and it's really useful to look at what's happened, you know, in the past, as well as looking at potential displacement risk in the future for a lot of the planning work that OPCD does and that the Planning Commission advises on. So with that, I'm going to turn to Philip Carnell to tell you about a couple of additional tools.
So as Diana was talking about, we have a handful of displacement risk monitoring tools, that neighborhood change, largely looking at past historical population data and how neighborhoods have changed over time and faced displacement. And we also have two other data tools that look at indicators either independently, meaning one by one in the displacement risk dashboard, or in a combination and a consolidated more long-range view that will look at future displacement risk of neighborhoods that we use to really inform our long-range plans and investments. So what we're looking at here on the left is what we're looking at here on the left is one of the indicators, and each of the indicators in this displacement risk dashboard, which we most recently published the redesign of earlier this year, each indicator has a trend line, if it's available, a different table showing how the indicator itself has changed over time, as well as this map that shows where it's concentrated throughout the city. In that dashboard, we also have ways to look at combinations of indicators by renters, owner relevant indicators, development relevant indicators, and also allow for people to create combinations. This allows for more kind of nimble recent past, as well as program-specific data sets for individuals who've got considerations for their programs across the city organization. On the right, we have this longer range kind of planning data tool, the Displacement Risk Index, which we broadly update when we update the comprehensive plan and the major zoning. So it was most recently updated in 2022 prior to the rezones, and we'll likely update it at some point after. On the next slide, Megan. So that final tool, the last slide kind of rounded out our displacement risk monitoring, but this slide is another data tool that the city of Seattle has called the Racial and Social Equity Index. The RSE index, as I'll call it from here on out, was designed in 2017 with OPCD as well as a handful of other departments, including the Office of Civil Rights, to create a common set of data identifying where the Racial and Social Justice Initiative priority populations live throughout the city. This data set allows for departments to come to an agreement of where our equity priority areas are that we seek to invest in and create a more equitable city as we move forward. And the three of us, alongside our GIS analyst, Jennifer Pettyjohn, traveled last week to the Esri User Conference, where we accepted an award on behalf of the city for the Special Achievement in GIS Equity Award. There's only one of the equity awards that's issued every year. And ultimately, the folks at Esri were really impressed with how not just ourselves, but also how departments across the city have implemented this RSC index and how we have really rooted our values through things like local legislation that codify the RSGI program and that continue to carry forward these values. And next slide. And I'll hand it back to Diana.
All right, so I am just going to talk about this for a couple of minutes because I am looking at the time. Next slide, please. We want to let you know that we are queuing up work to develop a set of indicators to monitor the extent to which the city is on track to achieve the big picture outcomes envisioned by the comprehensive plan, especially racial equity outcomes. And these are going to build on our equitable development monitoring program reporting that we did in 2020, and will continue as a really important part of the monitoring. We'll continue to gauge progress towards eliminating disparities in outcomes, both by race and also by income and by neighborhood. Next slide, please. Here is a list of the community indicators of equitable development that we're going to be building on. These were selected in collaboration with the Planning Commission and with the Equitable Development Initiative Advisory Board, and with a lot of additional community engagement in communities of color and other marginalized communities. So we bucketed these into 4 themes related to home, community, and the community one has a lot of indicators of proximity-based access to opportunity, transportation, and education and economic opportunity. Next slide. For each of these, we looked at both racial and ethnic disparities in the city as a whole, as well as we overlaid our racial and social equity index to see how the equity priority areas are doing on the place-based indicators relative to how other areas of the city were doing. And like we did before with equitable development indicators, we are going to really focus on selecting indicators that are especially meaningful and useful for the public, and community-based organizations will enable stakeholders to shape monitoring, and we'll be collaborating a lot interdepartmentally. So we have, next slide, some questions for you, but you probably have more questions for us. Just like one of the questions that we have is, of the tools that you looked at, are there particular tools that you think will be especially useful for your work? Also, is there something tool or a feature or a topic that you'd especially like us to integrate into our work to better support you. And I did see in the comments a question about transportation costs and if we considered including transportation costs in the neighborhood-based tools that we were looking at. Our main data source, the American Community Survey, includes information about housing related costs, but not transportation costs, although there are various ways to get at this, both in terms of like the amount of time it takes to get around, especially to work. So we do have an indicator in our equitable development monitoring where we look at the time that it takes to get to work. And then we can also, as we look at future indicators, consider using, there are a couple of tools. There's one, at least, that used to exist from HUD for measuring transportation costs. And there's one from the Centers for Neighborhood Technology, Center for Neighborhood Technology, I think it's what it's called. All right, so with that, we are done with our presentation, and thank you for bearing with us.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you, everyone, Philip and Megan as well. And I believe the commissioners really enjoyed the Jeopardy game. I'm going to invite commissioners to put your name in the chat. I see Michaela has a question or a comment, and then I want to loop back to Rose to see if your question was answered. Michaela.
Should we start with, okay. Did Deanna get her? I think
Deanna's question was
a different one. Already answered.
What
Okay.
Diana just answered.
Okay. Hi. Thank you very much. I have the pleasure of getting to collaborate with Diana and Patrick and others at OPCD a lot in my professional day job. I work for the county. And I don't know, you guys maybe don't know this, but they just do incredible work. The quality of their work is excellent. The volume of what they're able to crank out with a very small team is just extremely impressive. And so we should all be really, really proud that our city invests in a in all of this work and building the resources that they've built out. Frankly, I'm a little overwhelmed by all of the tools that I feel like I just found out about and should have known about. On occasion, there will be like a map I see in one of our commission meetings, and then I struggle to kind of like reach out and find it. And so just appreciate that we had a full session today of getting oriented to all of the data tools. And I was following along in your presentation, trying to find them myself while you were presenting so that I could remember that they're there and know how to navigate to them in the future. I'm probably going to be just studying a lot what you did on accessibility because I'm going to have to do some of the same things myself. That's a whole new world for all of us. And that was very interesting to me. And then the tool that you created that you have used to sort of get different departments across the city on the same page about what the race and social justice and equity priorities are for the city. I have shared that in the past with my colleagues. King County doesn't have something similar like that. And so I really love that work. I'm always looking at the way you're evolving your understanding of displacement indicators, displacement risk, and just was impressed when I clicked on that today to see that you can filter by considerations for renters, considerations for owners. I just really appreciate the nuance you're bringing to all of the data. And also just at a high level, appreciate the interpretation that accompanies a lot of it, that you're not just giving me numbers and facts and figures that I then have to sit there and be like, okay, well, why is their population rate declining compared to the city average? But that in some places within the tools you've created, you're helping guide a reader along. So anyway, just overarching, wanted to express my appreciation and also underscore the need to continue to sustain the staffing levels that you have and hopefully increase them, because as data becomes the thing that everybody is excited about and people want more monitoring and they want more tools to inform their decisions, it takes people to do that work. And you guys have to be beyond capacity given all of the tools that you've managed to produce and maintain. So great work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We
Thank you
have
so much.
7 minutes left and 4 questions. So want to see, Rose, was your question about comparing neighborhoods addressed?
Yes, Irons People is beautiful. I'm looking forward to taking it.
Excellent. Deanna, you had a follow-up question?
Yes, I think with regards to the opportunity to include transportation costs, really what that allows us to do for our work is access to opportunity. Because if a household is constrained by, typically it's people either pay high rents and high costs for housing and lower their transportation costs because they have higher access to opportunity. But if they're farther away, pay less for housing, then their transportation cost burden increases. And when you then have the opportunity to look at number of vehicles per household, et cetera, it really expresses the importance of how some of these land use policies are actually going to be meaningful when we have high frequency transit corridors near them, massively modify the perspective around it, right? So that's why I think it is incredibly valuable. And I wanted to underscore that for an available tool to be able to make some of these discussions more fruitful for the commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Deanna. Amir, I'm just going to read your question in the interest of time. Which indicators have been the most actionable in helping prioritize planning efforts across neighborhoods? And I'm seeing Diana's responded the RSE index.
Yeah, really, it's been adopted by so many work teams across the city organization, and it's meant to be very flexible. It includes information about basically that helps you figure out where in the population there are relative concentrations of priority populations, RSGI priority populations, and it's meant to really be a starting point that's amenable and flexible, and that teams can uh, basically use to overlay their own programmatic information on other specific demographics. For example, if it's the share of the population or share of household without a car, or looking more deeply at like the share of the population who are kids or who are older adults. So it's been uh, used extensively.
Thanks, Diana. I think, so we've got 5 minutes left and Dylan has a question or a comment.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is awesome, and the data is just amazing. Similar to like Michaela said, it's overwhelming. There's so much information here to dig into. The RSC index is incredible. So just wanted to make sure to give you guys accolades for that. My question is a relatively broad one, so maybe you can just kind of hit it at a high level, just a couple of the kind of the major ones if you can think of them. But just curious, so much data here. How did you guys work with OPCD in terms of selecting the new neighborhood centers that are being proposed, and how did the data that you guys curate and provide help them shape and identify and prioritize which neighborhoods were going to get a neighborhood center? Because they selected some, and there's many more out there. I'm just curious what sort of role the data that you guys created played in helping OPCD select and pick and shape this collection of neighborhood centers that they've proposed.
I think I'm going to turn to Philip for this one, since Philip worked on policy related, the policy related side as well with regards to the centers and corridors.
Yes, and I'll say that some of the early scoping for this that was really reviewing a lot of data was prior to my time in OPCD. However, it was considering factors like where there are existing frequent transit intersections, where there might be maybe really resilient small business, like small commercial like properties that are thriving, and where there might also be opportunities for growth. So a lot of it aligned with kind of this land use, transportation data, demographics that aren't just held by ourselves, but are also brought in by departments including SDOT and our partners over at Metro, who helped to create some of the stop data. And by aligning those, then there was a lot of Seattle process that happened between how you pick and choose. And I wasn't in a lot of those rooms, but some of them it was about how well they fit some of these existing amenities, or how well they might fit in the future. And then of course, council process ultimately kind of thumbs up and thumbs down some of them. So there is as much kind of from this bureaucratic perspective that we put forth this proposal and see kind of, hey, these are the ones that we're thinking, as much as there is a political perspective that ends up deciding, both from the executive, so in this case under Mayor Harrell, as well as from the council side. So that would be the council that approved it last year. So hopefully that was helpful, kind of talking about the complications of it.
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks, Philip. We are just at time, and I do want to thank Diana, Philip, and Megan for your very thorough presentation. As many commissioners have indicated, it's a lot to take in, and I can imagine we're going to want to follow up with you perhaps at a committee meeting for a working session after commissioners have had a chance to absorb all this wonderful, rich data and analyses that you have provided. And I will be sharing the PowerPoint with commissioners once I receive it from Diana, and just want to thank everyone and thank our presenters. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you so much. It's always a
Thanks.
treat to talk with you all.
Thanks all for having us.
Thank you.